Hello again. We've been talking about various topics, and I thought of doing a little update on the vaccination for COVID or SARS. Multiple states and many different people are having vaccination. Somewhere I saw a number something like 77 million people have already gotten it. Another one said 50% of the people plus have been already vaccinated, etc. And the vaccine seems to be very effective. Somebody just asked me a question, and that's why I thought of doing this particular video. He asked me a question: the vaccine is not 100%. What is the possibility that somebody who is vaccinated, that means he is protected, can carry the virus and give it to somebody else? And I really didn't have a good answer. And I'm not sure if anybody has a good answer. But I thought that we will just do a little bit of a review of the data that is available, and I can assure you that the data would be revised again and over again. As we speak, more and more analytical tests have been done on patients who have received vaccines and have still gotten the COVID. Some of them have been admitted and some of them have had a bad outcome. It's also that we have seen antibody titers of varying nature. It is difficult to do antibodies measurements on a routine basis, but some of the data in the past had shown that antibodies after the COVID infections lasted 73 days at the level of more than 50%, which is considered protective. So recently I saw a few articles. One of them was, I think, from CDC and a BMJ, British Journal of Medicine, which stated that approximately 5,800 people or so got COVID, and they were fully vaccinated out of 77 million people. But then there are data coming out of Israel, there is the data coming out of St. Pete University, there's also data coming out of Kentucky, nursing home, Chicago experiment. And you will see all this data coming out from various places where people have been watched and tested frequently. In one of the places I saw, originally they were tested twice a week for the COVID, and then they dropped it down to once a week. And people have seen that some people still get it. But if the incidence is as low as 5,800 cases out of 77 million, I think we are lucky. I think the vaccine is extremely effective, both mRNA vaccines, Pfizer and the Moderna, and that will give us solid protection. Also, the data suggests that even when people get the disease, it is very mild. But again, when you get the disease, which is diagnosed by doing a PCR test from the nostril, certainly you are infectious. So the question that somebody asked me, can you get the disease? The answer is yes. Can you transmit it to somebody else? The answer would probably be yes. However, the incidence would be so low that as long as viral load is not significant, people are not going to get sick, nor they're going to be in position to transmit much. So that comes back to the wearing the mask. So even if somebody has a very mild disease and the PCR is positive, if he's wearing a mask, chance of transfer becomes extremely less, simply because the viral load is low and if he's wearing a mask. So yes, after the vaccine you are protected, but not 100%. Your chance of transmitting becomes significantly low when you are vaccinated, and further lowers it down when you wear the mask. So this is an important message that we could obtain. Now, coming back to the effectiveness of effectiveness of vaccine, in patients who are immunocompromised. Again, we are nowadays using a lot of biological in patients with rheumatoid arthritis and many other conditions. You have seen significant TV commercials. But there was a study done, I think from Johns Hopkins, about antibody titer in patients who had solid organ transplant, which means people had a transplant done, and to prevent the rejection of the transplanted organ, they get immunosuppressant. As you can see from the name itself, the immunosuppression, these people will have a difficult time producing antibodies simply because their body's immunity is suppressed, and these are the same people that are more susceptible to the infection as their own body does not produce the antibodies. So only 17% of the patients who had received transplants and who were on immunity suppression drug or immunosuppressants produced significant antibodies to protect them, which is bad. So I'm not sure what is the answer, but I'm sure the CDC and other people will come out with an answer. Maybe vaccinating them with a third shot, though this has not been yet recommended or approved. But it looks like that may be the only answer that I can see. Again, I don't know. Second thing that I saw is patients who have blood cancer. Chronic lymphocytic leukemia is very common. Myeloma is another disease which is very common. These two diseases, people have tested antibodies. And in case of CLL, the chronic lymphocytic leukemia, they found out that when people were in remission, that means they had done the treatment for chronic lymphocytic leukemia, they produced antibodies. Almost 79% of them produced adequate antibodies to give the protection, which is less than the effectiveness of the vaccine, but pretty good, almost close to that. Contrast to that, when people were being treated with chemotherapy or drugs, the production of antibody dropped down to only about 17 or 16%. So people who are on active treatment for cancer, chronic lymphocytic leukemia is a blood cancer, did not have a good response with the antibodies to the vaccine. And these are the people that will need to be looked at, and maybe there will be patients who will need a third shot. A similar thing was observed in multiple myeloma, which is a little different disease, but people know about it. It's a plasmacytoma, and people get chemotherapy for it. Again, in the study that was done on multiple myeloma patients, similar finding was seen that they did not produce enough antibody titers, and many of them were still susceptible. So again, these two conditions or three conditions, solid organ transplant patients who do not produce antibodies, chronic lymphocytic leukemia who are on treatment, or myeloma who are also on treatment, might need a third shot, though this is not established nor recommended as of yet, but that might come out. One of the other things that I looked at in the different articles, one of them was that some of the people who had antibodies against some of the variants of the COVID virus still had the infection. So it looks like that just having an adequate antibody titer against the variations or variants of the COVID itself did not necessarily protect them from not having the disease. So it looks like that we are in for more studies, more recommendations, more experience. But it is also promising that the current mRNA vaccine, Moderna as well as Pfizer, are very effective in controlling serious disease and definitely fatalities. So I think this is the lesson that we still have to learn, and especially with immunocompromised patients, we might need a third shot, but it's not clear. Thank you for watching. I hope you like it and subscribe it. Thank you.